Welcome to our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Today we're going to discover the rich history and cultural significance of the San Antonio Mission's World Heritage Site. We'll journey through time as we explore the architectural wonders and the stories behind these historic missions, which are an integral part of American and Spanish colonial history. From 1718 to 1731, the Franciscan Order's clergy undertook the establishment of the San Antonio missions. At the behest of the Spanish government and the Catholic Church, these priests were dispatched to the Texas region, then part of New Spain, with the aim of settling and safeguarding the territory claimed by the Spanish crown. Prior to the construction of the missions, the area had no permanent Spanish settlements. The primary objective of the priests was to gather the indigenous people who were nomadic gather hunters into missions, thus laying the foundation for enduring Spanish communities. The first mission that we'll see here on this tour is Mission Concepcion Church. Construction of the main church building was a labor-intensive endeavor that spanned over 2 decades, culminating in its completion in 1755. The mission compound encompassed a plaza, the church, and the convento, which provided accommodations for the priest and included facilities such as a refectory and an office. Following the church's completion, the temporary living quarters for the mission Indians were constructed using stone, forming a protective enclosure around the mission grounds. In addition to these structures, mission residents built animal pens, a granary, and a well within the secure inner walls. We're now walking through the old stone church. The remarkable preservation of the church at Mission Concepcion can be attributed to a combination of sound engineering and master craftsmanship, with perhaps a touch of divine providence. What you see before you is not just one of the oldest stone churches in America, nor is it merely one of the longest-running Catholic parishes in the nation. It serves as a living testament to the Spanish instrument that converted the indigenous people of Texas into loyal subjects of the Spanish crown. During the 1700s, Mission Concepcion's church was adorned with vibrant geometric-shaped murals that must have been a breathtaking sight. Imagine the splashes of brightly colored frescoes gracing both the exterior and interior of the church and the priest's quarters known as the convento. As the first permanent mission church in the region, its beauty and extravagance were likely a mesmerizing spectacle for local natives, drawing them like a rainbow in the desert. If you had never before seen such a massive, colorful, permanent structure, it would have been a sight to behold. Many historians contend that the first significant battle of the Texas Revolution unfolded right here at Mission Concepcion. It was a little over a decade since mission priests had transferred mission lands, cattle, and tools to the converted Indians. Calls for Texas independence had resonated in El Norte, as Texas was colloquially referred to for many years. Following a brief skirmish at Gonzales in October of 1835, the Mexican army advanced towards San Antonio de Bexar. Stephen F. Austin, the military leader of the local Texican force, dispatched the legendary Jim Bowie and James Fannin to find a defensible position. Their choice was a location approximately 300 yards west of the gate of Mission Concepcion, along the banks of the San Antonio River. Today, the battle site looks markedly different, but transport yourself back to the autumn of 1835. There were dense woods clung to the steep riverbank, and concealed within those woods were Texicans who are armed with long rifles with a range of 200 yards. We've now made our way to Mission San Jose. Mission San Jose was established in 1720 by the Franciscan missionary Father Antonio Margil de Jesus. Initially situated on the eastern bank of the San Antonio River, just to the south of Mission San Antonio de Valero, commonly known as the Alamo. It underwent multiple relocations. Many of the structures at the original site prior to the 1760s were of a temporary nature. In 1768, construction of the present-day church commenced and it was completed about 14 years later. As we'll see here in just a bit, the church's facade and rose window are renowned as outstanding examples of Spanish colonial embellishment in the United States. Perhaps referred to as the King's Highway or Royal Road, traversing El Camino Real was always a challenging undertaking. This extensive network of approximately 2,500 miles of pathways that linked Mexico City to the distant regions of New Spain consisted of unpaved and often rugged trails. Travelers needed an abundance of patience. The journey was slow and frequently difficult to follow. The settlements along the Camino Real were widely spaced with minimal or no rest areas where one could find respite, water, or subsistence. Throughout the 18th and much of the 19th century, those embarking on the Camino Real faced constant threats of attacks by indigenous peoples, scarce supplies, and at times very harsh weather conditions. Picture traveling hundreds of miles without the aid of roadsides and relying on rudimentary maps. How would you navigate your way to your intended destination? The regions we now recognize as Texas and northern Mexico were once home to a multitude of distinct hunter-gatherer groups. These communities followed the rhythms of the season, relying on wildlife and access to water resources for their survival. Men within these groups played the role of hunters and warriors. When the land provided an abundance of wildlife, their families enjoyed bison, deer, javelina, turkey, possum, and rabbit, with these men displaying exceptional skill in using the bow and arrow. Their responsibilities extended to safeguarding their peoples from threats posed by Apache and Comanche raiders, as well as from other clans competing for better hunting territories. Leisure time was a luxury rarely afforded to these indigenous people. Upon entering the missions, their lives underwent a profound transformation, becoming far more regimented than what they were used to. These men and boys were no longer hunters and warriors, acquiring new skills essential for life as a productive Spanish citizen now. They were taught the art of farming and ranching to provide for their sustenance. Additionally, they became proficient carpenters, blacksmiths, and masons. They actively participated in the construction of their new community. They mastered the craft of spinning and weaving cotton and wool to produce blankets and cloth, while also learning the milling process to transform wheat into flour. As we explored the mission compound, envision Indian sentries stationed on the walls, diligently defending their community against marauding indigenous groups. These sentries, who still employed the bow and arrow, also honed their proficiency with European weaponry. Moreover, they embraced a new religion, which likely presented one of the most challenging aspects of their transition from a nomadic life. Nevertheless, it was a prerequisite on their path towards becoming Spanish citizens. Imagine the extraordinary courage required to forsake one's families, comforts, and security in exchange for a life filled with unknown challenges. In the footsteps of St. Francis of Assisi, Franciscans embodied the spirit of meeting people where they are and responding to their most pressing needs. Unlike monks, Franciscans are friars unattached to a monastery or abbey. They go wherever they are called to serve. These devoted individuals commit themselves to a life marked by celibacy, obedience, and poverty, values that endure even today as missionary work remains their primary activity. Franciscans played a pivotal role alongside the original explorer of Taos, forging new paths and forging connections. These resolute and unwavering men received their training at one of two Franciscan colleges in central Mexico. Their foremost duty was to convert the native populations to Christianity. For a Franciscan assigned to a San Antonio mission, the role encompassed that of a spiritual guide, a teacher, and community leader. He imparted knowledge of Latin, Spanish, and the Catholic faith. He demonstrated practical skills to the mission's indigenous inhabitants, teaching them how to create basic tools as well as musical instruments. These Franciscans enlisted experts to teach the local population valuable trades such as agriculture, irrigation systems, construction of permanent structures, and a proficiency with European weaponry. They managed the procurement of essential supplies and distributed items like shoes, clothing, soap, chocolate, and tobacco to the members of their community. Moreover, they established a Spanish system of self-governance within the mission. They mediated disputes, assigned duties, tended to the sick, and devoted their lives to the well-being of the people they served. On most days, the reconstructed San Jose gristmill operates much as it did in 1794, which is believed to be the year of its initial construction. The grinding stones used in the mill today were unearthed on the mission grounds and are thought to be the same ones utilized during the Spanish colonial period. While both corn and wheat were cultivated in the fields surrounding the mission, experts now know that this mill was primarily employed for grinding wheat into flour. Corn, despite being a Native American plant, was not a staple in the diet of the indigenous people along the San Antonio River. It had to be cultivated, and the transformation of these hunter-gatherer communities into farmers was a result of Spanish instruction. As we examine the mill's operation, we'll notice that the same irrigation dishes which channeled water from the San Antonio River to the fields also powered this grist mill. The two grinding stones are designed in a manner where they do not make contact with each other, with only the upper stone in motion. The space between these two stones and the speed of rotation are controlled by the miller. This gap size dictates the coarseness or fineness of the mill grain. If the stones were to touch, they would become damaged. Additionally, if the top stone were to rotate too quickly, it could lead to the grain burning, thus spoiling the flour. It's worth noting that wheat flour can be highly flammable, making the miller's skill critical in maintaining the stone's balance and the appropriate distance between them. As you gaze upon the intricate carvings adorning the entrance to Mission San Jose, often referred to as the Queen of the Missions, you can't help but share in the awe that was expressed by Father Juan Morphy in 1788. He said, "No one could have imagined that there were such good artists in so desolate a place." Yet the identities of the artisans responsible for these remarkable works of art remain unknown, as is often the case with ancient art. These carvings are rich in symbolism, conveying profound meaning. 6 saints stand sentinel over the entrance, each bearing significance. Above the window, you'll find Saint Joseph, the mission's patron, holding his son, the baby Jesus. To the right of the window is Saint Francis of Assisi, the founder of the missionary order that served the mission Indians. To the left stands Saint Dominic, a contemporary of Saint Francis, who, like Francis, committed himself to a life of poverty, simplicity, and obedience. Flanking the entrance are Saints Joachim and Anne, the parents of Mary, the mother of Jesus. These saints may have served to emphasize the importance of family to the native population. And above the door stands Our Lady of Guadalupe, the patron saint of the Americans. As we go throughout the church, we can see carvings, and we'll discover oftentimes 3 hearts in each of the statues, each with its unique symbolism. One heart is encircled by a crown of thorns, representing Christ's suffering due to his love. Another heart is pierced by a dagger, signifying the pain and sorrow endured for love. And the third heart is adorned with a lily, which can symbolize purity and resurrection. We oftentimes see shells carved into the building. These shells symbolize baptism, signifying the entry into the faith, a pivotal aspect for both the church in saving souls and the state in acquiring new citizens during the mission era. The church's beauty was further enhanced during that time with vividly colored frescoes, creating a truly breathtaking interior. The building itself represents an irrevocable transformation for all those who cross the threshold.
storage building, and then as I mentioned before, a lot of the cooking in those ornos, and then caring for the children. If you were a child that was about 14, 15, that's when you're really going to get thrown into those tasks and start doing some of the more physical work. But if it was time for harvest, everybody
Take one step right there. You're still in my view. Here, Emily, come closer. Come closer. Come closer.
Our journey now continues to Mission San Juan. The construction history of the complex at Mission San Juan reveals a series of architectural developments between the 1750s and 1786. In 1756, the first stone church, a friary, and a granary were successfully completed. By 1762, the mission had become home to 203 indigenous individuals. In about 1762, the construction of a second church was initiated. However, the endeavor to construct a larger third church began in 1775 and regrettably was abandoned in 1786. The abrupt halt in construction was attributed to a decline in the population and a shortage of labor, leaving the church only partially completed. Think about the image of this church, now in ruins, which was envisioned to be 70 feet in length and 22 feet wide. It was designed to boast a vaulted ceiling, a single bell tower, and a baptistry. The construction of this third church began in 1775 under the guidance of the Indian master mason Antonio Salazar, along with his native labor force. As you envision this church rising before you, its walls standing at their full height, you can feel the anticipation of the ribs and vaulting that would have adorned the roof. The sacristy, a sacred space designated for the storage of the priest's ornaments, robes, is a unique 8-sided octagon. By 1785, the interior is well on its way to completion with decorative plaster featuring painted designs that embellish the walls. However, what brought this ambitious construction project to a halt after a decade of labor? Was it a scarcity of materials or a shortage of laborers? Could it have been another outbreak of smallpox, measles, or cholera? While these factors may have played a role in the history of the mission, it's highly probable that the primary reason for halting the construction was the prohibitive cost of continuing. The Spanish had a strategic interest in maintaining control over the land known as Tejas, or what we call Texas today. And it also wanted to keep France from encroaching upon its land. To achieve this, Spain employed the mission system, which aimed to convert indigenous people into loyal Spanish citizens. By teaching them Spanish, introducing European clothing, collecting taxes, and fostering Roman Catholic worship, these new citizens established a distinct Spanish presence along the Camino Real, the King's Highway. One of the buildings that we're coming across here is a post-colonial structure known as the Tufa House. The house derives its name from the term tufa, which refers to tufaceous limestone. This building was constructed in the 1850s using the foundations of mission Indian quarters that were initially built in the 1750s. If you take a look at the walls, you'll notice that they consist of different colored bricks with limestone and darker sandstone representing distinct periods of time. Father Francois Bouchot, a French-born priest, is believed to have overseen the construction of the Tufa House. He began serving the communities of San Fernando, Espada, and San Juan in 1855, and he also took on the restoration of the San Juan and Espada chapels. His dedication to his mission communities endured until his passing in 1907. Historians suggest that the Tufa House was initially utilized as a school for religious classes, catering to students who attended the public schools located on the main road now known as Presa Street. The final mission on our tour today is Mission Espada. Mission San Francisco de la Espada holds a significant place in the history of Spanish missions in Texas. Originally founded in 1690 as San Francisco de los Tejos near present-day Nacogdoches in East Texas, it was subsequently relocated to San Antonio in 1731 and became known as Mission San Francisco de la Espada. This move marked an important chapter in the mission's history. The mission boasts distinctive Spanish architectural features that we will see that are visible in the church doorway, bell tower, and brick archways, which reflect the unique design elements of Spanish colonial construction. Furthermore, Mission Espada's ranch, known as Rancho de las Cabras, is located about 23 miles south of this mission. At its peak, the ranch had a substantial livestock population, including over 1,200 head of cattle and 4,000 sheep. This ranch played a vital role in supporting the mission's activities and providing resources for the community. The transition that Native Americans underwent when they entered the mission system was indeed profound and challenging. Imagine being thrust into a completely foreign environment where every aspect of your life, your language, customs, religion, and worldview is radically different from what you've known. What could motivate you to give up everything you believed and held dear? In this new world, you are not just adapting, you are required to assume a different name, relinquish your familiar songs, dances, traditional stories, and perhaps even family members. You must embrace a new identity as a Spanish citizen. Practices such as going unclothed in the hot summer months, which are part of your cultural heritage, are now condemned. Your nomadic way of life, where you spend a little over 3 hours per day searching for food, is traded for a sedentary, highly regimented existence within the mission. The routines, schedules, and artificial concepts of time imposed on you and your native band are unfamiliar and challenging to adjust to. Natives entered the missions for various reasons. Some sought protection from their enemies, a regular supply of food, or shelter during harsh winters. Others, however, were coerced into mission life. For most, the transition into Spanish society was incredibly difficult. Running away from the constraints and demands of mission life was so common that missions frequently organized excursions to recapture those who had fled. The architectural history of Mission Espada's current chapel showcases the ingenuity and adaptability of the skilled stonemasons who worked on these projects, particularly in remote mission areas where they couldn't always follow a strict plan from start to finish. The arched doorway that we see here in this chapel provides a perfect example of this. As we examine the finely cut stones on the chapel doorway crafted by master stonemason Antonio Tello in about 1744, however, these stones were not originally intended for this particular doorway. The chapel you see today was initially designed to serve as a sacristy or a room for holding the priest's ornate robes. Tello was originally constructing a larger church, but he left the area unexpectedly. As you face the chapel, you can step back and look for the foundation remnants to the right and in front of the church that would indicate the original plan. Today's chapel is now a center of an active Catholic parish and is testament to the collaborative, evolving nature of this construction project. It reflects the adaptability and resourcefulness of those who contributed to its creation over time.
It's not on top.
Yeah, you guys can go on in those.
Oh, thank you.
Tenía que haber gente aquí defendiéndolo. Porque, sí, porque los acuerdos que el gobierno no permitía que los utilizaran ni nada de eso, ¿verdad?
Mission Espada's historical context is the most vulnerable to attack among the 5 San Antonio missions. It's palpable even today. Near the entrance of the parking lot, adjacent to today's chapel, you'll spot a diamond-shaped foundation. This represents one of 3 baluards, or bastions, integrated into Espada's wall. These 17-foot-high fortifications served as a place where mission natives, trained as soldiers, used flintlock muskets and small cannons to help secure the mission. An additional circular-style bastion, now part of Espada's museum, was added after the mission period and later used by the Texian army. Various indigenous groups such as the Pacayos and Barados, among others, sought refuge at Mission Espada to escape the marauding Apache. The Apache were known for their reliance on force and their swift horses. The introduction of horses to the Americas by the Spanish in the 1500s provided the Apache with a significant advantage over pedestrian bands in the river valley. The mission offered sanctuary, and several armed sentries often patrolled the walls. However, when the natives ventured outside the walls to gather foods like seeds, berries, or prickly pear, they often faced attack. Human adversaries were not the sole threat to mission life. The introduction of European diseases such as cholera, smallpox, and measles took a devastating toll on the indigenous population. An epidemic of smallpox and measles affected all of the San Antonio missions in 1739, leading to numerous deaths and prompting many mission Indians to flee. By the end of this epidemic, Espada's population had dwindled from 120 residents to about 50. In fact, the mission priest succumbed to the 1739 epidemic while ministering to some of the mission Indians who had previously posed a threat to his life just 3 years earlier during disputes over mission policies. This illustrates the complex and challenging history of the mission period in this region. I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder tour through the San Antonio Mission's World Heritage Sites and the 4 missions that we looked at today. Make sure to leave a comment on which one of the missions you found to be the most interesting. Also, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Take care now. Bye-bye.